Step number one, they pick a what? Starts with an O. Whenever you have an origin. Yeah, they've got to pick an origin. So they pick an origin in a corner, and then they can divide it up into metres going that way and that way along the rectangle. Right? Fairly trivial exercise. Do you agree with that? How about you tell them, as a condition, you are not allowed to have the origin of your coordinate system at a corner of the oval. You must put it somewhere else. You are not allowed to have your axes parallel to the edges of the oval. So they have to pick an origin somewhere else, you might not even let them do it on the edge, and then their axes have got to be in some other direction. Alternatively, you might say, you are to design a coordinate system that a person could use to uniquely know where that goalpost is, but it is not allowed to have two axes, and that's it. That'd be the next activity. So how could I design a coordinate system that I can give it to somebody else and that will uniquely know where that goalpost is? What are the other coordinate systems we've got apart from the Cartesian coordinates? Remember the polar coordinates?
No.
You have an origin, and there's the two, and you have that, and you go up to there, and you form an angle. And the coordinates are a distance, which is the distance from the origin, which puts you somewhere on a circle, and the other coordinate is that angle. The coordinate is actually given as r theta. Oh. Remember this?
I recognise r theta.
Yeah, polar coordinates. The distance from the origin and the angle that it is from the axis. It only has one axis, like an x-axis. Right, so, but you can get kids to develop this. Like, it's a problem-solving exercise. How can I design a coordinate system that uniquely identifies a point? Can you design a coordinate system for it which has two straight lines as the axes, but the lines are not at right angles? There's the point I want to do. Normally we put them at right angles. Is it possible to uniquely identify every point on this? Let's say the shape of the oval wasn't that. Let's say it was actually that. Can I put the coordinate, the origin there, and use that and that as my two axes? And then use measurements in relation to my axes on the origin in some way to uniquely identify every point.
Why not?
Oh,
Substitute.
all I can think is triangles. Use triangles, like Pythagoras sort of thing. If one point's there, you draw a line from...
Okay, so there's my point. How do I uniquely identify the point in relation to these axes which aren't actually at right angles? Can I measure out a perpendicular distance there and a perpendicular distance there and use those two numbers like I would with a normal xy? Does that work?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Probably could.
Yeah. So if that was 3 and that was 4, does that uniquely identify that one point? Is there anywhere else that in that paddock which satisfies on 3 metres vertically away from that one and on 4 metres vertically away from that one?
No.
3? No, there's not. There's only the one. 3 metres away from this means I'm somewhere along that vertical line. 4 metres away from that means I'm somewhere along that vertical line. And there's one single point of intersection. So can I use a coordinate system where the lines are not actually at right angles? Yes. Why do we use them at right angles? Simplicity, yes. But you can use the whole, and this is what kids don't know. They do all this work on coordinate systems, but they have no understanding of the meaning that coordinate systems are merely a tool that we use to uniquely identify where points in space are. And you can make up any coordinate system you like. It just so happens to be that we've used the Cartesian one because it's simple. Make sense? So what you could do in these first 3 lessons, all of these sorts of activities would be designed to get them thinking about, at year 11 level, more about the meaning of all of this. What is a coordinate system like? What can it be? What are the essential requirements? After I'd done all of these, I would get to the end here, back towards the end of lesson 3, and I'd pose another question. It would be something like, what are the minimum requirements I need for a coordinate system in something like, just do it in 2 dimensions. What sort of answer would you hope they would come up with? First thing they would say straight away is you have to have a origin, a point to start, which is 0, 0, that everything else is measured in relation to, and that origin is arbitrary. Right? What else would you hope they would say? If I'm in 2-dimensional space, how many numbers do I need to be able to nominate a point? 2. So therefore, irrespective of how I do it, the minimum requirement is I've got to have an origin so I know where to start, and I've got to have 2 things. Do they have to be linear measurements though? No. They can be other things like polar coordinates. They can be one measurement and an angle. But if I do it in polar coordinates, is it sufficient? What else do I need if I'm going to do it in polar coordinates? How many axes do I need? One. That's right. Cartesian coordinates, well, the way it works, it requires 2 axes at right angles and an arbitrarily chosen origin. Polar coordinates requires an axis, one axis, an origin, and what it uses is the distance from the origin and the angle measured positively from right to left from the one axis. But they're just the common ones. You can use any system. The axes don't have to be at right angles. So, because kids often coming out of grade 9 and 10 will tell you that the axes have to be at right angles. They don't. Have they learnt anything new in these first 3 lessons after doing all of these activities? In terms of the mathematics that's sort of beyond what they already know? Not really, in my view. What you're trying to do here is to take what they already know and to give it structure. Engage them with the ideas and the thinking and to organise it in their head so that they understand what's involved in it better, so that as you blast off into this stuff down here, they've got a much better foundation upon which to build it. Does that make sense? Good. Is that the only way to do it? Is there any other way to start it? Pardon?
Probably.
Yeah, probably. This is just what's fallen out the bottom now. You could do it any other way you like. All right? But what are the 3 characteristics I'm looking for in your first couple of lessons?
Engagement.
Doing, engagement. It's about doing, students doing, not the teacher. Second one? Prior knowledge and? Assessment on your part so you know what's going on. But assessment in a subtle and creative way, which doesn't put, they're not walking in at year 11 and the first thing you're going to do is, I'm going to find out what you people know. Here, do this. Because we're going to try and plug all the gaps in your knowledge. Right? It can't be overt like that.